Hello YouTube folks, welcome to my channel. My name is Steph and today we're going to be doing a February reading wrap-up. We have 8 books to talk about. I will preface this video by saying I am planning on doing a Toni Morrison full bibliography video really soon. I'm almost done reading all of her books for Black History Month and Women's History Month. And a lot of these books on this list are Toni Morrison books, so I'm not going to go super into depth on any of those books just because that's going to be in an upcoming video very soon. Without further ado, let's get into it, y'all. So the first book I finished in February was 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Haro. I never know how to say the last name. I had started this in January, talked about it in my January reading wrap up, but I finished it like the second day of February and I gave it 2 stars. I was pretty disappointed. Y'all, because I loved Once and Future Witches. That book was one of my favorite books like 2 or 3 years ago. And 10,000 Doors of January just kind of felt like, it was trying to be something it's not. And I really didn't like some of the POV shifts, some of the writing style shifts. So this book is about this girl who discovers there is a world, a society, what have you, that controls, tracks, tries to manipulate these doors that take you to other universes, that take you to other places that are magical, non-magical, historical. Like, it's like this multiverse that you can access through all these 10,000 doors. The main girl's name is January, hence the name 10,000 Doors of January. And this girl discovers that she plays a major part in the world of doors and passageways and the other universes. I liked a lot of elements. There's like a dog. His name is like mean or bad. It's bad. His name is Bad. And I imagine him as like this giant Rottweiler. And I liked that character. I liked January. I thought she was interesting. I thought her struggle with being different and outcasted was very well written. But I didn't like, there's like a half of the book is following January and her experiences kind of discovering the doors, and the other half is like a narration of somebody reading a textbook, and I hated the textbook side. It was so like, I don't like being told something. I don't like being like, and then the river goes through the and the door was crushed and blah, blah, blah. And like, that to me is really annoying. I don't want to be told. I want to be taught through story. I want to be shown something in more nuanced ways. I want to see characters discover these things. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like that, and maybe some people will, especially if you like mid 20th century male written like dystopian books, you know, that it kind of reminded me of that style, that era of literature, and it just really wasn't for me. And I feel like it was trying to do something, trying to tell a story about stories that I just didn't succeed in. And there's a book that I read later that this past February that did succeed, in my opinion, at doing this thing. So 10,000 Doors of January, pretty disappointed. Took me forever to finish, even though it's not that long. 2 stars. The next book that I read was House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper. I also started this one in February. This ended up being a DNF. I read the first 2 chapters and then I didn't pick it up for 4 days. And then I was like, meh, no, I don't really want to pick it back up. It's just been too long since I read the first book, Wolf Den. It's actually right there, face out. I forgot a lot of the characters. I forgot the world, except for the major themes in the first book. And it just didn't tickle my peach. I may revisit it, probably not this year, to be honest. If I do, I'll have to read Wolf Den first. And there are so many other books that I want to reread this year that I'm kind of like, I don't know. So that was a DNF. I don't even think I gave it any stars. Usually I do give DNF star ratings, but I didn't DNF it because it's bad. I didn't DNF it because I didn't like it. It's just, it's not, for now, it's not. I'm not in the mood to read it. The next book I read is the first Toni Morrison book of this video, which is Tar Baby. I gave this one 3 stars because I really liked the message, but I didn't love the plot. I'll get more into it again in my Toni Morrison full bibliography video, but it's about this white family who kind of takes in this black girl, and they like pay for her education, they kind of like endorse her, they feed her, house her, kind of dynamic. And they're at like a vacation house on an island, and this black man who escaped off a boat shows up in their house, and it just kind of discusses dynamics between white and black people when certain stereotypes are applied to each other. And it also discusses dynamics between black people who have different experiences with white people and kind of how they see each other in the world. The next book is another Toni Morrison, another 3 stars, and that's Song of Solomon. I know this is one of her more popular ones, but it has not been a favorite for me so far. I think I've read 7 of her books at this point. It's about this young guy who is not very kind or very proud of his family, and he's kind of trying to discover himself through the lens of his family, through the lens of his community and his hometown. There's this whole plot about a realtor who thought he could fly and jumped off the roof of a hospital. This is the first chapter, so like this isn't a spoiler, but the main character spends his whole life trying to fly, metaphorically. I don't know, I kind of got lost in the sauce with this one, so maybe if I reread it in 10 years or something, it'll mean something different for me. But I just didn't love it, and I thought the main character was really unbecoming. Not in like a, oh, he's complicated and, I like untrustworthy main characters. Not in that way, but like literally some of the things he did and said, I was kind of like, that was so mean, Another Toni Morrison. I told you guys this is going to be a lot of them. The next book I read is Sula, which was a 5-star read. And this was about these 2 girls who, it's told non-chronologically, so I'm going to try not to spoil it. But essentially these 2 girls went through something really extreme as children, and then kind of had to face the repercussions, kind of like focused the lens of that experience through each other, have this sort of toxic, dependent relationship. One of them goes off and explores the world, and the other stays home as a housewife, and just kind of how their community reacts to them, how they treat them differently. There's a lot of conversations about light-skinned and dark-skinned black people in this one. It was just really interesting. I think after reading this book, I discovered that I liked Toni Morrison's books that kind of explore like domestic life versus like going out and seeing the world. Like I like her more home style, small town stories, especially when it's like kids to adulthood, like kind of seeing that character arc. Like Bluest Eye, I did read in January. That kind of was the catalyst read of this Toni Morrison journey that I'm on right now. I loved that one, and it starts off with them as kids. So I think that's kind of the Toni Morrison genre, subsection of her genre that I gravitate towards, and I discovered that reading Sula. Okay, finally a non-Toni Morrison book. The next book I read was Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. And here's the thing with this book, y'all. I have a lot of opinions. Here is the thing. This did successfully what 10,000 Doors of January tried to do, which is a story about many stories and how they're all interconnected together. This is about a college guy who finds a book in his college library and discovers that a part of the book is about him. It's a little meta. And this sends him in like an existential crisis tirade. He like dedicates his life to try to figure out where this book is from, and in doing so he discovers the story of the Starless Sea and the interwoven plots and people in the book he finds that has his story in it, and kind of goes on this very dreamlike, mystifying journey to find the truth, essentially. The thing with this book, her other book, Erin Morgenstern's other book, The Night Circus, is very similar, but it's a little more linear. It's a little more clear kind of what's going on and believable. This book, you really have to suspend your disbelief, and I sincerely believe You cannot read this book with like a literary critic's eye. You have to set aside your reading ego and just like dive into this story thoughtlessly, and then you will enjoy this like no other. Like, it is so hard to follow what's going on because it's so like blippy and it's so like puzzle pieces scattered, but they don't end up fitting into each other in the end still. Like, it's a very ethereal, non-tangible story. And I promise you it is good. I promise you it's okay to read a book and not have an explanation for everything. I promise you that things that don't feel believable, you can make yourself believe when reading this book, because you just have to take like everything you know, everything you've ever read, every movie you've seen, all the like stories that you have preconceived notions about, you have to pull them out of your head and just enjoy the ride that this book takes you on. I gave this 5 stars. The first 100 pages, I was like, okay, like I was really cringing. I was really not feeling it. And then I just kind of picked it up probably the second or third time I read it. And I was like, you know what? Let it go. Let it go. Just enjoy. Because this is for a book club anyway, so I really wanted to finish it. It's a pretty long book too. I think it's like 500 pages. Yeah, 500 pages. But it's good. It really is good. I promise it's good. It's very different from Night Circus, but very much written. Like the prose is very much the same. It's just very different stylistically. I promise you this is good. I promise you, if you love stories, you will love this book. It's got a queer romance, it's got magic, it's got realism, it's got surrealism, it's a little bit abstract. It's almost like the type of movie you watch mostly intoxicated and you enjoy, and then you watch it again sober and you're like, what is this? Like, it feels like that, except the intoxicated version. You know what I mean? I really, really recommend this book. I feel like people who read a lot can learn a lot from reading this book, from the experience of reading this book. I'm gonna stop ranting. Please consider picking this one up. Okay, next 2 books are Toni Morrison's. They're both 5 stars. The first one is Beloved, which is probably her most famous book. It is very much a horror book. I would recommend it if you like Jordan Peele's movies, like Get Out and Us, because it's very much a black, I would say, suburban story. But it's about this woman who is a black woman. She was a slave for a lot of her life and then escaped to the north, right, to freedom. And she had multiple kids, and some of them did not make it with her to freedom. And she only has 1 daughter left. Her 2 older sons have left her. They're gone. This man who was a slave with her shows up at her door one day and is like, hey. And she's like, oh my God, hey. And with him, he kind of brings a lot of memories that she's compartmentalized and forgotten. And one day, she and her daughter and this man are at a carnival, and this girl who would be the right age of one of the woman's deceased kids shows up. And she says her name is Beloved, which is the name that the woman gave to one of her children who did not make it to freedom. It's pretty spooky. It's pretty gory. Definitely shows sides of humanity that maybe we don't want to admit to. But this one definitely, lots of trigger warnings. It's a ghost story. It's a ghost story. Really good though. And the last book we're talking about today is Jazz by Toni Morrison, another 5 stars. So this is about a man who is happily married, and he has an affair with a teenage girl. She's 16 or 17 when they first start. And she kind of controls his life. She makes him leave his wife, and then she leaves him, and she dies very tragically. And that's kind of the mystery. You find out how she dies in the end. Everyone wants to know. And everyone has like different gossipy tales of how she died. But at her funeral, at the teen girl's funeral, the ex-wife, scorned, mutilates the girl's body, like as she's in the casket. So now the woman, the ex-wife, is excommunicated from the community. The girl is gone, and the man obviously is like a disaster because he ruined his life for a 17-year-old girl who ended up not even wanting him anyway. This one was interesting as well because I feel like a lot of Toni Morrison's books kind of explore dynamics of people falling apart. She really likes to see how people who are like densely interwoven rip at the seams and then do the healthy thing and no longer talk to each other. But in this one, you actually see a relationship between the ex-wife and somebody who is related to the man kind of connect in a very awkward but genuinely kind way. And I thought that was really cool and really nice, instead of just the woman being like the evil ex-wife who mutilated a child's body. This one was interesting. It's a really quick read. Most of Toni Morrison's books are really short, but I feel like I talked too much about that one. I am literally doing a video on Toni Morrison, hopefully this month, but I did really like that one. 5 stars as well. And that concludes my little February reading wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching all the way to this point. Also, shout out to my bookshelves. I finally got around to fixing the lights because they kept falling. So I like triple layered the tape at the top so they wouldn't fall anymore. And it's like a fabulous backdrop. So here we are, folks. Those are the 8 books I read in February, hoping to read 8 more in March. I can't believe how many books. I usually only read a book a week, but I've been reading 2 books a week this whole year so far. At this rate, I'm going to read like 100 books this year. I struggle to believe that though. I feel like we'll get to a point where I will slow down, you know, as you do. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. I am not your mother. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.